The views expressed on Cam, Chris, and Alex Talking Football are not those of End of the Internet LLC, copyright 2012, its affiliates, or any of its partners. If you are offended by the subject of bones, dads, sneaking downstairs, non-sexual hugs, DeviantArt, lanyards, tattooed women, Reggie White, police officers, and individuals who resemble Wes Welker, you may not want to listen to Cam, Chris, and Alex Talking Football. In other words, content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. This is Cam, Chris, and Alex Talking Football.
Imparting her moist lips.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, hang on, crazy pants.
That's our talk woman.
Featuring Cam.
Sorry. I was laughing at your clothes.
Chris.
His mind brain is permanently rejecting his real identity!
Mind brain?
That's a thing. Shut up.
And Alex.
But someday I'm gonna write a book about this place. A real smackaroony.
Cam, Chris, and Alex Talking Football.
I am drunk, or I wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah, no, I am shit-faced.
Careful, cause in about 3 drinks you're gonna get all boo-hooey and ask me to pump a baby in you.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cam Chris and Alex Talking Football. We left off on our free agency frenzy previously with so I think we're going to pick up with the West right here. I think the biggest story, despite the Alex Smith trade, the biggest story in the AFC West has to be Reggie McKenzie and the Oakland Raiders and how they've handled or have mishandled their situation so far in this offseason, in the last 2 offseasons in particular.
I mean, it's only a big story in the sense that it's so unbelievably tragic. Like, I can't possibly fathom being an Oakland Raiders fan and seeing this happen.
Me neither.
I mean, $40 million in dead money, first of all.
Yeah.
But let's start right there. I understand they're trying to clear, some of these atrocious Al Davis Albatross contracts. I get that. But why, if you're the Oakland Raiders, are you trying to run Carson Palmer out the door in order to start Matt Flynn, who's going to cost you, $3 million less this year against the cap?
Yep.
Great job, guys.
I don't understand what the motivation for that move is, among others. I mean,
$39 million in dead cap, and some of the players that could have retained. I mean, you look at Darius Hayward-Bay did not save them that money when you cut him. I mean, there's a lot of cuts that makes sense here. Like Tommy Kelly saved them about $9 million because he was making literally $15 million this year, or something stupid like that. But Hayward-Bay was only saved you like $3.5 million, and Palmer didn't save you that much. I mean, when you consider that they had to trade for Matt Flynn, only saved you a couple $1 million because he's so much dead money. I mean, you look at just this year, and then when you look at last year, like when they cut Cameron Wembley, even though they didn't say maybe $1 million guaranteed money, their roster's so talent dead, it's almost comical. I mean, you look at who they're paying. I mean, some of the players that they're paying like more money to. I mean, if Rolando McClain doesn't get his contract voided, I'd be surprised at some point. But and Tyvon Branch, you're looking at Matt Flynn, Mike Brazil, Vance Walker, Nick Roach are their highest paid players. Right there. That's their highest paid roster. They're paying Vance Walker $2 million this year. Yeah.
For fucking what? He was like, what, 4th string in Atlanta?
Yeah.
And he's number 2 on their defensive tackle depth chart. It's him and Pat Sims are the starters in the middle right now.
And for the record, the $40 million in dead money does not account for the $9 million that they suffered from cutting Michael Huff, who was only worth $7 million this year. And so that brings their dead money cap figure up to $48 million this year. $48 million in dead money. Just no cap. None. Nothing.
Now, I understand, the value in just having a straight-up punt year where you just say, we're going to be terrible this year to get all these numbers off the cap and just be good next year. That makes sense in theory. But when you look at the replacement players they're bringing in, I mean, there have been some okay moves. Like, I actually really like the Pat Sims signing because it was cheap. They needed, somebody who could do anything inside. So I didn't hate that. I mean, but when you look at what they're paying Nick Roach, when you look at the fact that they didn't cut Mike Brazil, who's not a fit in their new blocking scheme, the Matt Flynn trade, it's like I seriously question their ability to evaluate talent because these moves just don't make any sense.
Yeah. And when you look at the Huff move, I mean, he's worth more money to them on the roster than he is. And who are they going to replace him with? They're going to play I don't know again, or what are they going to do at safety? I just don't understand it. There's no talent replacements for the guys they keep, getting rid of, and it's literally costing them cap room. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, looking at their defense right now, there are not a whole lot of people who would start for another team. Lamar Houston would be one. Kevin Burnett would be one.
Yeah.
They just acquired him, yeah. I mean, look at
Tyvon
people who they're
Branch
carrying over.
started for them for a while.
He's decent. I mean, when you look at people who they carried over from last year, who's going to start on that defense? Tyvon Branch?
Looking at their cornerbacks, Tywan Jones is listed as a cornerback.
Yeah, they converted him to corner.
Yep.
Yeah, Chimdi Chekwa, Coy Francis, Philip Adams.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Tracy
Philip
Porter.
Adams is their number one corner right now, isn't he? Wait, didn't they sign Tracy Porter?
Yeah,
They
Tracy
signed
Porter
Tracy,
would be
yeah.
their number one.
So Tracy
Wait.
Porter's probably their number one right now. That's kind of a really depressing thought. I mean, even if he bounces back, he's never been a number one or anything close to a number one.
I mean, let's unironically look at the starters from last year who are on defense who are going to carry over to this year. You got Tyvon Branch, you got Lamar Houston, who's good, and
Miles Burris.
Miles Burris he had an okay year. Yeah,
I mean, for what? He was a rookie 5th round D2
Yeah.
kid
like-
playing linebacker. Yeah, I'll take that if I'm the Raiders.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's 3 defensive starters from last year, and only one or maybe 2 of them are worth anything. I mean, how horrible? How do you have to get even in a rebuilding year? That's awful. That's terrible. Reggie McKenzie should be ashamed of himself. God damn.
It's like I said, I understand, if you're gonna just go, we're gonna go be 2-14 next year, just get all this money off the book and go on whether it's a spending spree or, I mean, it's not like there's any talent for them to retain, so I don't know what they're gonna do with this money after this year. But
Right.
I mean, I understand it in theory, but the issue for me comes with you have extremely, extremely limited cap room, and you're giving $5 million guaranteed to Nick Roach. It doesn't make any sense. Like,
Holy shit, you got $5 million, Garen?
Yep.
Come on.
Yup.
yeah, he did, and
Sickening.
And that deal is structured in a way where it's backloaded. I mean, he's going to be
Yep.
making most of the money on that deal in 2015 and 2016.
That guy's been living off of 3-place game backing up Urlacher for what, 5 years?
They
Yeah.
signed Alex Barron. Nick Roach looks like a godsend.
Look at their
in that
backup
context.
tackles here. Alex Barron and Willie Smith.
I
Yep.
mean, they're backing up Khalif Barnes, so it's not as if they're much worse. I mean, Alex Barron has a legitimate shot to
Khalif
start a right
Barnes
tackle on this team.
Yep. Khalif Barnes actually had a negative incentive last year. I'm not actually sure what it is. But he had a negative bonus. He did something so bad that he had a negative bonus. So just have fun with that, Oak.
That's the Raiders for you. I mean, I guess this draft is really going to be make or break
it's not like
for
they've
their
done
front
much in free
office.
agency.
They can't really. I mean, they barely got any cap room even after making all those cuts. But like I said, I think the draft is really going to be make or break for the front office because this is a bad draft and there's absolutely no reason, no chance for hope. I mean, if they manage to somehow botch this draft, I understand they still have no second rounder from the Carson Palmer trade, which is still funny, by the way.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it's
Never stop.
you have to get some semblance of building block talent. You have a top 3 pick, even if it's a class that's weak at the top this year. You have to get something.
And they're talking about Geno Smith there, which
What?
is no, there's serious rumblings coming from the Raiders camp, which is, by serious rumblings I mean a few draft people have either tweeted or done articles about it, that the Raiders are legitimately interested in Geno Smith. And I would absolutely.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, with the Raiders, I mean, I hate to say this for the Ninja. I'm sorry, man, but there's just nothing to look forward to this year. Your team is dead of talent, and almost every. I mean, you got a couple decent receivers, a quarterback who had one really great game, and you really full 16 game season. You got nothing at tight end. McFadden is one play away from being out for the rest of the year. Veldheer and Wisniewski are only decent linemen. The whole defense pretty much sucks except for Branch and Houston. That's what you got to deal with. There's maybe 7 or 8 legitimate starters.
And not to mention, you've got
Starters on the
Travis
entire-
Goethel, who's the laziest backup long snapper in football.
I'm not even mad about that. I put that behind me. I
Okay,
put my
but-
behind in the past.
I mean,
I
I mean,
mean-
legitimately, maybe 7 to 10 starters on this team. I mean, that's not. I'm not being sarcastic or exaggerated. There's 7 to 10 legitimate in them. They need to fill out 22.
They make the Jaguars look like a playoff team.
They
Yeah.
do.
The Jaguars would probably
Christ,
go like
the
12-4 or 13-3.
I mean,
If
Against
they
them.
I'll
played the
give
Raiders
Kevin
every game,
Burnett
they'd
the
probably win
greatest
13 of
starter.
them.
Yeah, that's insane. And that brings us to our next, the Kansas City Chiefs, who signed Frank Zombo today. So go y'all.
Yeah, I guess he's replacing Andy Studebaker.
Ooh.
Well, there's a high profile move right there, but I mean the Chiefs. I mean this. I just don't even. I don't get it. They had 2 legit last year. Eric Winston, Brendan Albert. Albert on the left side, Winston on the right side, and all they had to do was keep Winston on the roster at a really good price and extend Albert. Instead, they're franchise Albert. They're trying to trade him. They cut Winston for no reason, and they want to draft another tackle
Shocking.
with the number 1 overall.
It's
Just bizarre. I mean, Scott Pioli was fired for a reason. Why are you doing the exact same shit?
it's especially crazy to me because I mean, I guess I look at it from the mantra of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, Brandon Albert is 27, 28 years old. Yes, he's going to command, a pretty big extension if you choose to extend him to be your left tackle. He's had some back issues, but he's played at an above average level for a little while now. I mean, the past 2 years he's been at the very worst pretty good. But you want to throw away, a quality starter at left tackle, which are hard to find, in order to roll the dice on a rookie. It's the same argument that we saw user Troy Aikman making about Tony Romo. You can't guarantee you're going to get another stud player out of this draft. Having the first overall pick doesn't guarantee that. You don't know that either Jokel or Fisher is going to live up to even be what Brandon Albert was. I mean,
That's right.
we're not that far removed from Robert Gallery going second overall and being a complete bust at at left tackle. Sorry, we're not that far removed from Jason Smith
And
going
right tackle,
second
yeah.
overall being a complete bust at right tackle. Exactly. That there are high-profile, can't-miss tackles. I mean, even look at someone like Andre Smith, who took how long to put it together as, a top 6 pick?
That's correct.
About 3 years, yeah.
You can't guarantee that you're getting a role play. You don't know that you're getting someone like Matt Khalil, who's going to come in and play at a fringe Pro Bowl level from day one. I mean, the scouting report on Jokel, who is the leader in the clubhouse to be the number 1 overall pick, is that he's a well-rounded, pretty good overall tackle. That there are no holes in his game, but he doesn't do anything at a dominant level.
He's not
That's
elite.
Brandon
He's not
Albert.
elite.
That's Brandon Albert. You're drafting the same player if he pans out. His ceiling is Brandon Albert.
There were only 2 elite players. Reasons. That was Jarvis Jones, in my opinion at least, Jarvis Jones and Star Lotulelei. And I think they were the only 2 elite athletes when you looked at. I mean, just guys who outpaced almost everyone in the NFL in terms of athleticism.
I mean, a lot of people seem to think that Chance Warmack is the best player in the draft, but
Well, they're stupid. They're really just people whose pure athleticism combined with their ability to play football, it just outpaces almost everyone who's in the league right now. Lotulelei, Jarvis Jones, and some people have said Ezekiel Ansah, maybe. But as far as I was concerned, those 2 are the only ones, and they've both fallen severely because of medical
yeah.
issues. And both of them would have been Chiefs. Jarvis Jones, they've already got outside linebackers, not so much. But you look at this draft, there's no clearly elite players for them to take at the top of the board anymore, especially with the injury. But even without the injuries, some people would disagree with me on those 2, and there's about that, especially because they gave up so much for Alex Smith, and they paid so much to Chase Daniel for. I mean, I love him because he's a former Saint and he studied under Breeze for 3 years, but they gave $5 million guaranteed to Chase Daniel, y'all.
Ugh. I mean, the thing that gets me about the Chiefs is that, and this probably doesn't even affect their team, but they have got the biggest list of no-name wide receivers. Listen to this right here. Terrence Copper, Marty Gilliard, Junior Hemingway, Jamar Newsom, Tyler Shoemaker, Devon Wiley, Josh Bellamy. Who are these people? This is the
like
dev team from Madden. These aren't NFL players.
Kansas City Chiefs signed
coming
Hope
out of
Bromley.
Michigan.
Signed who?
Hope Bromley.
Hope Bromley, man.
See,
Yeah, that's where they're at.
I feel like the Chiefs right now are in a very similar situation to when we talked about the Dolphins. It's a team that had a lot of cap room, and they've clearly improved from a talent perspective, but they overpaid for many of the moves they made. They got worse on the offensive line, which is head-scratching, because how can you fuck that offensive line up? I don't understand that. But even letting that go, I mean, bringing in Sean Smith to play outside and Donta Robinson to likely man the slot greatly improves your secondary.
He's
Considering
playing safety.
There's
I don't
the
know.
report
I think they tried
initially
to
was
say
that he was going to play
to do
safety.
that.
That was the report initially, and they backtracked from it and essentially said no, he's going to have a chance to play corner. Yeah, I mean, if he plays. I mean, he's a good slot corner. I'd be fine with that. I think Chiefs fans should be fine with Donta Robinson in the slot.
I'm just.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not complaining about it. I'm just noting that,
right.
that's where they're at, where they might play him at safety or slot. They won't have a replacement at either one.
And even so, I think if they play him at safety, he's probably an upgrade over Kendrick Lewis.
Oh yeah.
So either like you look at it, they've gotten better.
Probably.
I mean, DeVito's an upgrade on Dorsey, albeit a small one. They're better across the board, but at way too much money. I mean, even Jeff Schwartz, that was a great signing for them because it pretty much guarantees they don't have to start Jeff Allen.
Well, that's true.
But check some numbers out. I mean, I already said Chase Daniel got $5 million guaranteed, $4.5 million guaranteed. Donta Robinson, who's been shit for the last few years, he got $4 million guaranteed. And you look at this team. I'm looking at a team that has a ton. Oh, sorry, Donnie Avery, $2.5 million guaranteed. Forgot about that. There's a ton of talent that's
wait. Donnie Avery, how much guaranteed?
$2.5 million guaranteed.
Oh,
on
I
a
said
$2 million
$25
contract.
million guaranteed. I was
No,
about to-
God no. But that's a contract that's 2 or 3 million or 2 or 3 years, and he's getting $2.5 million guaranteed. But when I look at this team, I see they had a window for this year, maybe the past couple of years. They had a legitimate window, very little money, a lot of underpaid, rookie deal talent. Like you got like Justin Houston and Derek Johnson are being ridiculously underpaid for what they do. Even Jonathan Baldwin, I think, is a lot better than what his
John Asamoah is still in the tail end of his rookie
cap
deal.
number show. John Asamoah, yeah. Even I think Javier Arenas could be a decent nickel corner too. I think Alan Bailey is fine as a rotational guy. I mean, they got a ton of guys who are on the tail ends of their rookie deals, and they're not going to have the cap room for it because they're legitimately they're not over the cap. They're just under the cap right now. They'll be if they sign anyone else and they go after signing the rookies, they'll be over the cap. And that's a problem. It's a real problem for them, and they're not doing nearly enough to address it.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, when you look up and down their roster, like I said, there's a lot of talent there. The defense looks stacked at this point. I mean, I think that's fair to say. Their weaknesses are at second middle linebacker and free safety right now. Free safety or nickel corner, take your pick.
Right.
It's going to be one of the two. I mean, they're okay on the defensive line. They're not great, but they're certainly improved from last year, I'd say. But you turn over the offense. I mean, Donnie Avery's your big, Donnie Avery and Anthony Fasano are your big free agent signings to bolster this offense. These are your weapons for Alex Smith, who you overpaid for.
But I mean, you look at Alex Smith. You could have paid a 7th round pick for Carson Palmer.
I know it doesn't make any sense.
He's only being paid $1.5 million more than Alex Smith is this year, so it's not a cap issue. And you paid literally like astronomically more for Smith than you would have paid for Palmer for no reason.
I mean, I'd like to believe that Reggie McKenzie isn't dumb enough to trade Carson Palmer in division, but it's Reggie McKenzie. You never know. So
it wouldn't surprise
Peter
me in the
King
slightest.
try to defend Reggie McKenzie like, it wasn't his idea for this cap situation to happen. Yeah, but he's not dealing with it well.
Right,
can we go back to shitting on Reggie McKenzie? That's all we said.
Yeah, that's easy.
Because he was hired specific situation in a reasonable way that would maintain the talent in Oakland, and he has done the exact opposite of that.
There's still no reason for him to have cut Darius Hayward Bay.
Like I said,
Well,
I have
Cameron
no problem whatsoever with the way he's managing the cap. My problem's with his talent evaluation, which appears to be completely non-existent. It appears to be Gene Smith tier.
Well, I have a problem with it. The cap situation. I mean, when you look at Hayward Bay, that would have only cost him like about 2.5, 3 million this year. I mean, cutting him only saves him that much, and his contract was going to run out anyway. And Cameron Wembley, I believe he actually cost him money last year, and if he didn't cost
Wembley was a
money,
stupid
it was
cut.
pretty.
I think every
Stupid,
non-Wembley
stupid.
cut they've made is defensible.
I don't think Hayward Bay is defensible. When you look at who they're going to be. Jacoby Ford's not even recovered from his injury yet. Denarius Moore is not a true outside receiver. They don't have anybody to start a true outside receiver. I mean, they got nothing.
If you're willing to call this season a lost season, then it's totally fine. And I think if you're the Raiders, you're willing to do that at this point. Like you had to know
They've had
with
too
all
many
the
seasons.
They have, but I mean, this is the first effort they've really made to clean up their cap situation, rather than continuing to extend players like Stanford Rao.
Well, they had a movement like that that accumulated in the 2007-2008.
Now here we go.
Like
Here comes the head coach 09.
And then they give like 8 different players insane contracts, like Gabriel Wilson, Tommy Kelly, D'Angelo Hall getting like ridiculous contracts. They were doing pretty well in terms of their cap management until about 2007.
Until Al Davis went Al Davis, and this is the correction for that.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's why I understand it, that you had to get rid of these contracts sooner or later. So, but
it was done so poorly.
I agree it was done poorly, but it still needed to be done. So, I mean, are you better off if Tommy Kelly gets cut last year instead of this year? Yes, obviously. Are you really, a better team saving a couple million off the cap, cutting Michael Huff and Darius Hayward Bay? No, obviously you're not on paper, but it gets you out of a huge cap commitment for the next couple years. In Huff's case, at least. I mean, this was Hayward Bay's last year, and there was pretty much no way he was going to re-up there. But even so, it's if you can draft well, it's a step in the right direction. But I have no faith that they can do that.
No, I don't have any faith in that either. I don't think that he's
who are they
even
gonna take,
evaluating
really?
free agency well, because if he was, he would have signed Brandon Moore right now. I don't
Who are
care
they
what
really-
Brandon Moore is asking for. It's an upgrade over Mike Brazil.
And he wouldn't even be taking Brazil's job. He'd be starting at the other guard spot because they don't have a second guard.
Yeah, they have
I
nobody.
believe it's Tony Bergstrom right now, who's, a third-round pick last year?
They've got nobody who's really anyone.
Oh,
who
did
they
Cooper
drafted
Carlisle
to
leave?
zone block? Yeah, I think Cooper Carlisle retired, actually.
Oh,
Don't quote me on that,
Yeah,
but I
he's
gotta check.
nice. When you look at their draft situation, I mean, if they really take Geno Smith, God have mercy on their souls. I'd like to think that the Matt Flynn trade precludes that, but
I would
at this
hope so.
point, I just don't really know. I mean, a lot of what I've seen is Sharif Floyd. They don't have any talent anywhere, so you could literally take a player at any position, and I wouldn't object to it as long as there's talent there. But there's no elite talent in this draft when you account for the injury players in Latule and Jarvis Jones. There's, in terms of just pure athletic and like NFL caliber talent, and where you've got previous years where there's 5 or 6 or even 10 players like that.
I'd argue that there are a couple guys that are elite or fringe elite talents that are at non-premium positions. Guys like Warmack, guys like Kenny Vaccaro are on that level, but they're not playing a position that anyone's going to be taking in the top 5. So if you're Oakland at 3, that doesn't really help you. So I agree in that regard.
Well,
But,
I'd also argue that my other player for elite talent is Marcus Hunt, but his issue is age, which is and being
And
just really
technique.
raw. Technique,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Being really
technique's
raw.
another one.
But he's like Justin.
If he could become
Smith,
Calais
but
Campbell,
free.
then I would definitely take him. But
I mean,
we don't know that yet.
when you look at Hunt, he's legitimately 30 pounds plus lighter than Justin Smith, and he looks stronger than he does. It's terrifying
he's
how
ripped.
dominant he is.
It's scary how ripped that man is.
He looks
but
like
he's also
from one of those
27.
post-apocalyptic 80s cartoons.
Pretty much,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's from Estonia. It's the same thing.
But to get back to that point for a second, I'd be upset if the Raiders drafted one of the tackles at 3. Whichever one's there. I can't talk tonight. Wow. But I'd be upset with that solely because you're playing them out of position at right tackle, because there's no way you can move Veld here. He's been fantastic for them. But
Yeah.
I mean,
See that picture
Veltier's
of him? Oh my
wonderful,
God, that
and a
dude
lot
is
of people don't realize it.
huge.
Oh, he's jacked too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I thought it was photoshopped.
His body fat percentage has got to be absurd.
If they draft Marcus Hunt, then he can be with Jared Veltier, and they could be Thundar the Barbarian and Ukla the Mock.
Yeah, that's actually pretty spot on. Like, can't even laugh.
great.
That's absolutely right.
That's absolutely great.
If I'm the Raiders right now, and God knows what Reggie McKenzie's going to do, he's probably going to fuck this up and draft Deion Jordan or something. But I feel like you have to go defensive tackle. No matter which of the top 3 defensive tackles you take, you have to do it. Just because it's, with the exception of cornerback, it's the weakest position on your roster right now. And as far as positional value goes, it's what makes the most sense. Because there's not a cornerback that's worth taking in the top 15, much less the top 3.
Milliner, Alex.
Don't do this. Now, I actually do want to say something about Milner, because if for some reason Milner is killing it in interviews and on the whiteboard and shows that he understands the adaptations his technique will need to make it the next level, then the physical skill set is absolutely top 10. But from what we've seen on his tape, it's not there. Like unless this dude is absolutely slaying it in the interviews, you cannot take him that early. And it's obviously information I don't have access to, so...
Right, and speaking of, it's funny that you say slaying it, because, I mean, when you look at his physical skill set specifically, he's in the 3rd or 4th round, that's Darius Slay. I mean, who's got better technique than him, but that's just because Alabama has a very strange, defensive back technique that's made all of their defensive backs busts in the NFL. I mean, Javier Arenas, you got Dre Kirkpatrick, was injured most of the year, but even when he saw the field, he wasn't that good. It's been awful. I mean, and you look at a guy like Milner, who's got these, he ran a 4.37. I mean, shit, Slay ran a 4.36, and he's not a first round pick at all. He's not even a first 2 days pick, arguably. And Milner's getting top 5, selection for what? For playing on elite defense, specifically adjusted to playing towards being surrounded by talent that is objectively better than every offense you will ever play. That's what D. Milner's designed for, is that everyone around him is going to be better than the offense that they're playing. And that's just not going to be true in the NFL. The technique won't work because notes in it are not going to be true, ever. So Milner's, him being a top 20 pick is insane. I mean, unless he shows, like Alex said, just an absolutely, borderline genius level of adaptation for technique that he's been indoctrinated with over the past 4 years, then it's going to be a disaster.
I mean, I know this is kind of a weird comparison, but I sort of compare Milner right now to Torrey Smith when he came out. Torrey Smith's college tape was terrible. I mean, his hands didn't look good, his route running didn't look good. He was just a physical specimen that could blow the top off the defense. People were talking about Torrey Smith in the 2nd round, and I thought it was insane, because he put absolutely nothing on tape. But in his 2 years in the league, he's shown he's an incredibly dedicated worker. He hones his craft, he works hard on his route running, on his ball skills, things that he didn't have in college. Like, he's actually put in the effort to show that he could become a complete NFL receiver, and we've seen how well it worked out for the Ravens. If you're getting that kind of, kind of interview ability from Milner, then yes, he's absolutely worth taking in the 1st round. If you're not, if he comes out like a lot of these other Alabama defensive backs and just doesn't show the ability to adapt to NFL coverage systems, then you can't take him before day 3, period. You can't do it.
No, and he's going to be taken in the top 10. Because it's mostly because A, he played on national championship teams, and B, he had an excellent pro day. But again, I ask you, objectively, and I'm not trying to homer here that much, but objectively, look at him on tape versus Darius Slay on tape, and their physical skill set, and what they can do in coverage around them, and it's really not that different. I mean, I hate to say that because it's going to make me sound like a massive homer, but it's not all that different. I mean, Slay's not that good, but D. Milner's not either.
I think the biggest thing that people are seeing on tape from Milner is that the Alabama defense really allowed him to sort of freelance and ball hawk a bit, which is strange from the corner position. But he was really able to demonstrate his ball skills in a lot of cases, and that's been a huge mark in his favor. And there's also the fact that he was really, really remarkable in run support, which, I know run support corners are the blocking wide receivers of football. But it's still it's still a mark in his favor. I mean, there are still corners that won't hit. I mean, you're not going to rely on somebody like D'Angelo Hall to make tackles for you on the outside. I mean, he'll try,
or
but
Desmond Trufant, you know?
yeah, exactly. Trufont's not gonna. If he even manages to hit the guy, he's gonna bounce right off.
Right, but corners like receivers in that receivers don't have to block. They just have to get in the way, and that's so the safety or linebacker can make the hit, and that's kind of what you would. And that's why the run support. Anyway, run support corners are stupid.
All right, moving on. I think we've run the Raiders into the ground. So let's move to a more positive note with the Denver Broncos.
But we haven't. No, hang on. We haven't run the Blee managed AFC West teams into the ground just
I know
yet.
we haven't, but I wanted to give somebody a glimmer of hope.
No, we're gonna go straight
All right,
to the.
fine. San
the
Diego
Lord of-
Chargers it is.
The Lord of No Rings is gone, but his spirit remained, and every bad contract they are under, and have and it's been pretty beautiful. $10 million guaranteed to one of the most injury-prone cornerbacks in the NFL. Hello, Derek Cox.
See, I actually like the Derek Cox signing. I mean, he's young. He's what, 27, 28?
26, 27, yeah.
Yeah.
Something like
I mean, he's shown he's a borderline number one corner. He had some injury issues last year, but I mean his overall injury history isn't terrible. I mean, at $5 million a year, it's not bad, especially when you are the San Diego Chargers and you have literally nothing on your roster. I mean, Johnny Patrick right now is going to play significant snaps on defense. And
Marcus
he got cut
Gilchrist
by the-
as well.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't dislike Marcus Gilchrist. I think he's an okay third corner.
sure,
But
he's right.
it's just you look down this roster. They needed to do something at corner. Period.
Yeah, they did.
They didn't get Cox. Like, they didn't overpay Cox. So I like the move. If they had
Yeah,
given
they
him like an Eric Wright deal, then I'd be shitting all over it. But
Leave them
Cox is at worst a very good number 2 in the NFL. I think that's a fine deal.
But they gave him way too much guaranteed money for a guy who's been injured as much as he has. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, when you look at, compare him to San Diego, which is, as I said, a very good number 2, versus what they gave Keenan Lewis, who doesn't have an injury history guaranteed in New Orleans, and he got much less than that when you look at the way the deal is structured, and Derek Cox is going to be. I mean, if he gets injured again, he's going to be the new, and he hadn't been injured quite as much as Gaither has, but it's not that big of a difference.
I mean, I think there's like I actually, as far as a theoretical perspective goes, I actually don't dislike the idea of giving guys higher guaranteed money in exchange for lower average annual value on their deals, solely because if you're signing a 27-year-old cornerback, you're expecting him to play out his 4-year deal. So from that perspective, like, I don't have an issue with it. If you're making this signing and you're sure that you're not going to cut this guy barring a catastrophic injury, then I see no issue with it whatsoever. I'd rather be giving somebody 20 million over 4 years and 10 guaranteed than 27 over 4 with 6 million guaranteed. Because if I'm paying out the life of that contract anyway, it's costing me less money.
Yeah, and even with the Derek Cox, the backfield doesn't bother me nearly as much as the offensive line, because they've got Nick Hardwick and that's it. And they've got
nothing yet.
Jeremy Clary and Mike Harris are still slated to start, and that should worry anyone.
Oh, so you
except
guys are still hating on my boy King Dunlap, huh?
Yeah. Is Mike Harris really going to start over King Dunlap?
I
There's
don't
King
know.
Dunlap, there's Jeremy Clary, there's Mike
this
Harris.
is-
Oh my god, that's not even
This
a
is
joke.
really sad. I don't think that King Dunlap is going to be able to start over Mike Harris, because he's not better.
He's really
which
awful.
Is pitiful. But
Neither
he's
one
not
of them
better
are
than
even
Mike Harris.
rosterable. I don't know how they're on
Yeah.
an NFL roster right now.
So, from what it looks
And
like right
Harris
now,
will-
I think Buffalo swing guard Chad Reinhardt is their best starting offensive lineman right now.
No, Hardwick.
Him and Hardwick.
I mean, I've never really been impressed with Hardwick, considering I think Vasquez was hiding a lot of his issues. But those two are possible starting caliber NFL offensive linemen. That's more than I can say about anybody else on this team.
Well, Reinhardt's possible. I think Hardwick's
Oh, I
definitely.
said Reinhardt, dickhole.
I think Reinhardt's possibly. I think that Hardwick is definitely.
Hardwick
starter.
had a bad year last year. He wasn't in my top 10 for last year, but over the years he's been consistent enough that he's always on the team at least. I mean, so is Matt Light, but still, I kind of think that Hardwick has been decently consistent. It's just as long as he doesn't have a Brad Easter-esque decline, then yeah.
I think one of the more shocking things is that, to get back to, the mistakes the Chiefs have made this offseason, with the Eric Winston cut, how little interest he's generated. Eric Winston apparently has a minimum salary standing offer from the San Diego Chargers, which is all they can afford, to be fair. I mean, they're gonna have to cut Jeremy Clary to make that move anyway, which they should, but
Yeah,
even
just
so.
do that. God, pull the damn trigger.
But the fact that Eric Winston's market
He
is
wouldn't.
so
It wouldn't save them
soft,
that much money.
it's only saving him like $2 million, but if they're bringing in somebody who's better to replace him at minimum, then you have to make the move. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm still laughing that Robert Griffin is making $7 million this year. Help me, guys.
And he's uncuttable.
What's with this fucking right tackle
And he's
market,
uncuttable.
though? Like Andre Smith, Eric Winston,
It's bizarre.
Tyson Clabo? Come on.
Clabo's at least lining up visits. I mean, Clabo's lined up
Why was
3
he cut?
visits.
I still don't get. Was the Matt Ryan extension that's coming?
Too
That's
good.
what they said. That it was going to be the Matt Ryan deal was going to put them, in cap hell, and they like his backup, who is. Hold on, let me look. 'Cause I
Not
was
Will
just reading about this.
Svitek, he's playing in New England.
I think it's somebody they like. I've heard that they've got somebody they like. I don't even. I'm
He's
nearly
a
that potential.
second round rookie, and I'm trying to remember what his name
Oh,
is.
well.
Is it Holmes, Lamar Holmes, I think.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
him.
and
Who was
alright,
who was
I mean,
on
if they
IR,
believe in
I
him,
think,
then-
for a big
Lamar
portion
Holmes.
of last year. And
Holmes, did I see him play last year? Hang on, I'm going to check that.
I'm still amazed that the Chargers, that with all their cap situation, they didn't just sign Johnny Patrick. They made sure to get him on waivers, like that they wanted to get him before anyone else could get. Fucking, he was so bad that Corey White beat him out as our starting nickel corner for several weeks.
a 6'6", 323 second-year player out of Southern Miss. Holmes saw just 7 snaps as a rookie.
That's right. No sacks.
But they
hits, or
apparently
hurries
like
allowed.
him. What,
Week 15
7
Giants.
snap? They apparently like him, but he's only. I mean, he's clearly untested. And when you look at the right tackle market, Andre Smith's he has to be pissed at his agent because he could have gotten a great deal before Vollmer was signed and Clabo was cut. Because now the market's
Yeah,
so depressed.
his leverage has to be in the ship. I'd imagine that this has essentially become a situation where he's just hammering out details with the Bengals, who have oodles of cap room and pretty much are obligated to make that signing. Like, how could you possibly not? When you've got all that cap room, how do you let your Pro Bowl right tackle walk away like that? I mean, I'm not even the biggest Andre
That you
Smith
have to
fan,
use, by the way.
but you have to do it.
And the cap room has to be used this year, or you get a penalty.
I'm pretty sure it actually needs to be used over the next 4 years. You have to spend a certain amount. I don't think it goes year to year. Like, I think it's set up in a bracket like that, but I'd have to pull up the information on that.
I'm actually
100%.
I'm actually pretty sure they 13 from the CBA. They gave him a couple years leeway with the CBA, but they have to meet it by 2013 to get to that 90% level. And then later, it later goes. The bracket that you're thinking of is it later goes up to 95%, and you have to have a 95% cap floor.
I mean, I guess we'll
that's not
see
this
how
year,
it
that's-
all works out. But I was under the impression that they actually still had, a couple years
Right.
where it was essentially like you have to be at 90% over the next 4 years cumulatively.
You want to know a really funny joke about the Chargers? Here it goes.
What's
This
that?
is the setup.
Yes.
Jonas Mouton was drafted by the San Diego Chargers with the 61st overall pick in the 2011 NFL Draft.
Get around.
There's our boy.
That's my favorite.
Second round
Jonas,
pick.
Jonas Mouton was the worst pick that I've seen in terms of average mock draft allocations, except for Tavon Austin. Or
Tavon Wilson.
Like,
Damn it, do it right. But no,
Are we
Tavon
already
Wilson-
forgetting
yeah.
AJ Jenkins?
other than
Number
no,
34.
AJ Jenkins was only about 2
No,
rounds.
AJ Jenkins was listed among players.
Mouton, I believe, was projected in the 7th round range, and Tavon Wilson was legitimately not projected to be drafted by
He wasn't even ranked
many
among
services.
fucking safeties. I think I've said this
NFP
before.
had him.
Tavon Wilson could go on to be Ed Reed. I'd still call it a horrible pick. We could have got him undrafted.
Still horrible. I mean, you remember that guy for the Oregon who who was there in the national championship year, was like their slot receiver or whatever. That guy, the guy who was his backup, was ranked one National Football Post. That's how. I mean, it was like 570 something. Like, that's how far down the list he was. Other than that, Jonas Mouton was the worst pick, objectively, that I've ever seen.
Okay, here's a funnier joke for the San Diego Chargers roster. Running backs, number 34, Fozzie Whitaker. That's his name.
But they saw the Texans' success in starting Muppets and decided to try and capitalize.
I thought it was
It makes
Forrest
sense.
Whitaker's younger brother, or Forrest Whitaker's Muppet. He's got one eye looking to the left, one eye looking to the right.
Fozzie wasn't terrible.
I don't care if he's
the
good or
best
bad.
compliment-
He's Fozzie Whitaker. It's just his name.
If the
I
best
mean-
compliment you can pay somebody is that he's not terrible in college,
He's like
not going
the
to be able to play in the
fifth string
NFL.
running back behind Ronnie Brown, Ryan
He's
Matthews,
still
Evan
better
Baker.
than, Jackie Battle and Ronnie Brown. I mean,
He's
it's
really
an
not.
improvement.
Jackie
Well, there's
Battle
Danny
is
Woodhead
easily.
in front of him, so...
I forgot
Jackie
that you were a
Battle's easily
Jackie
the-
Battle apologist because he won you some week of fantasy when you were the only person
No.
dumb enough to start him. My bad.
No, it's actually because Ryan Matthews can't stay healthy for 5 seconds,
Oh,
and Ronnie Brown sucked, and
Yeah,
Danny
yeah, but
Woodhead
that
sucks.
doesn't make Jackie Battle good. He's still
No,
awful.
of course not. I said he's better. He's the best. I said he's the best running back on the roster.
Oh, I have another joke for you guys. I'm going to do it in the style of Chappelle. I'm Robert Meacham, bitch.
It's not a joke.
I'm on an NFL roster.
Chris here just discovered Chappelle's show.
I know, this is so funny. Black people are
Why is
awesome.
your
Apologize
why
for
is
that.
your black voice Al Capone?
I can't do it with my throat like this because I'm trying to stay
That's how I talk,
quiet.
see?
'Cause
Nah.
I can't do it too loud because my mom's upstairs trying to sleep.
Why don't
so-
you purify yourself in the later waters of Lake Minnetonka, she? Yeah, she.
Yeah, Chris.
Enjoy some pancakes, she.
I used to do the Chappelle voice of Rick James really well when I was in high school because that was, again, if you were on the high school football team, everyone had to see the Rick James sketch. It was rite of passage. You can't make the team unless you'd seen it. So I used to do that really well, and that was the only thing I had seen from it. So when they were doing does Wayne Brady have to choke a bitch line? I was like, I don't even know what that's from. That wasn't on any episode of Whose Line.
AFC West now, please. Can we please?
Okay.
Because the Broncos signed Wes Welker for $6 million a year, and that's bad. That's disgusting. Can we please complain? And Louis Vasquez deal, can we please complain?
All I really need to say about the AFC West is if the Broncos don't win this division by 8 games, there's something seriously wrong with football.
I agree.
No,
But,
it's
like-
that's just John Box.
Like, I mean, if you look at the roster and you look at their schedule, who are they going to lose to? I mean, they've got to play the other division winners in the AFC, which even if
Big
you lose
deal.
all 3 of those games, this team's probably still 12-4. It's just there's no contest in this case. Like, this is like you know how there's always that one sure bet going into every football season that everyone's like, oh, it's so obvious that it becomes so obvious it's a reverse lock. This is the opposite of the reverse lock because there's no possible way this won't happen. Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler could both get hurt week 1, and Caleb Haney could come in and start 16 games for this team, and they'd still win 10 games.
Caleb Haney is not quite on the team, so.
Exactly. They would sign him off the street, and he would start these games, and they would win 10 games anyway. They could win the first game, running Wildcat with Wes Welker at quarterback. It would work. It doesn't
I
matter.
believe.
This
Oh, they have Trindon
what-
Holiday too. Man, this is fun because we've been looking at these other teams like, wow, there's a dearth of talent at cornerback, or wow, they don't really have anything at offensive line. Looking at every single part of their roster, there's talent. Peyton Manning at quarterback, Willis McGahee at running back, wide receivers, you got obviously the big 3. You got the tight ends who there's solid talent there. There's solid talent at D-line, O-line, linebackers, defensive backs. I mean, defensive back is the one that's lacking the most.
Defensive
But
back
even
is the
then,
one
I
place I
think
see
that
an issue.
DRC is a good deal.
I mean, Bailey, DRC, and Chris Harris is a great 1-2-3.
Oh yeah, I actually really like Harris too. As a
No,
slot
disagree.
corner.
Athletic wide receivers, very talented, like fast wide receivers, are going to destroy this defensive back, and that's why they're going to get. Peyton Manning is yet again going to get run out in the playoffs early. It's because there's going to be a team that has legitimate fast wide receivers, and they're going to kill. And Bailey's old and he can't hang with them anymore. It's gonna happen because that's the only weakness of this team is that their safeties suck and their corners can't run with quick receivers anymore.
I do agree that it's possible to beat this team over the top, which is especially bad when you play, your home games in Denver. And
That's right.
it's Joe Flacco put up a 75-yard lob that looked, effortless. And I think he probably could have thrown the ball another 20 yards in Denver because the air is
So
so
what you're
thin
saying
that
is
the ball
he's
just...
lazy? Fuck, put in Tyrod
Yeah.
already.
He really doesn't work hard. I mean, goofus Joe Flacco,
He
only throws the ball
skateboards, right?
75 yards.
Well,
Gallant
fucking Flacco
Tyrod
being
Taylor
so
runs
greedy.
200 yards and then throws for another 5,000.
Remember the
each game.
skateboarding story? Because I remember that shit.
Look, if Flacco wasn't getting paid $120 million this year alone, then you guys would have been able to keep superstar players like Brandon Iambadeo,
And Kerry Williams.
Paul Kruger.
Rest
Nah,
in
but
peace,
the-
Paul.
What really gets me about the Broncos, other than their defensive back, which I think there's a dearth of athleticism, if not talent, then athleticism, is they just have a ton of depth everywhere. Just shitloads of depth everywhere else. I mean, I can't. There's not an issue at depth is like inside, like middle linebacker, defensive tackle. It's just the inside of that defense, and they still made really good free agent signings to fill some of those, like to fill the starting holes. Like Terrence Knighton is going to be great as a run-stopping defensive tackle,
Yeah, Podros was a fantastic signing.
and I mean,
that's actually an
Like, he's
improvement
not
over
good
Bannon,
anymore.
who had a
Stuart
good
Bradley.
year.
That's true.
Stuart Bradley's going to be okay as a reservist linebacker, I guess. I mean, they still need
I
a
think
starting
he's
middle
as a
linebacker.
second. He's second behind Joe Mays, I think.
Is Joe Mays going to start still? Oh, that's he's
I
overpaid
guess.
though.
I mean, well, it's
I
like
thought we were gonna
whichever
cut
one
him.
of them. I don't care. Vern
But,
Miller
I mean,
is
they've got-
one of them.
But the only place they really need, depth is pass rusher, and that they should have had that if not for, an agent who is horrible. But I mean, the only thing they've got at reserve pass rusher is Malik Jackson because Derek Wolfe
Robert Ayers
is a
maybe?
run.
I mean, Ayers and Wolf are starting.
Ayers is starting. No, Ayers is starting. And,
Oh, you mean depth? Yeah.
and Von Miller's starting as a third down pass rusher is what I was, at third downs he's going
Right.
to be lined up as pass rusher. I was thinking in terms of like reserve, like somebody who would play when if Ayers is winded because he's a 3-down starter on third downs. At worst, a minor issue, and you just got depth all over the place. It's insane, except for athleticism at defensive back, which is going to kill him in the playoff.
So I think that this is going to be one of the teams that's really, really interesting to watch in the draft this year, mostly because their draft last year was horrible. I think we can all
Yeah.
agree with that. They got nothing last year. They spent their first
Yep.
2 picks on a spellback and a backup quarterback. It just I don't understand what they were going for. I don't see contributing rookies coming out of
What do you mean
last year's
spell that?
class.
Their first pick was Derek Wolfe.
Did they take Wolf? No, they had 3 seconds, didn't they?
Wolfe was their first pick.
So
Nah.
it was Wolf,
Ronnie Wolf-
Osweiler,
Wolf was
and
their
then
first pick.
Hillman.
He was the second.
Yeah, Ronnie
Wolf,
was the third
Osweiler,
round.
Hillman. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I
Wolf
guess
was,
no,
okay,
you're right,
Wolf was
you're
the
right.
only
Two-
good one. Doesn't even make it in
Right.
the draft though.
the rest of their class was awful though. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
For some reason, I thought Wolf was 2011. All right, that's my bad.
Nah.
But I have to
All
worry
right,
about
Jordan
this football brain trust in Denver. I mean, not worry because fuck John Elway and I hope they lose, but I don't have any degree of confidence in this team. Like, isn't this the team that you expect to take Sam Montgomery in round 1? Like, I feel like that's where we're at. Like they're gonna take they're gonna make that pick, then they're gonna take another running back in round 2, and we're gonna end up with a Trent Baalke situation where they're just drafting like skill position players they don't need. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what's that? We can take a 4th receiver in this class? Come on down, Nard.
Oh man, Ryan Swope in the second? That sounds like a deal to me.
Are they going to try and field a team of all white wide receivers? It's very possible. I mean, if Demaryius Thomas gets hurt and they go Welker, Decker, Ryan Swope, and Matt Willis, who's Miles Austin white, so he's close enough. But
Is Eric Decker really white? Oh, of course he
Oh,
is.
he's
Chris.
so
no, but like, is he actually?
he went to
white?
Minnesota. You don't get much whiter than Minnesota.
He's super.
He's like pink.
He's insanely white.
Are you saying he's Tom Coughlin?
It's not quite.
Can we escape the AFC West? This has been a fucking death trap for
Well, the
us.
thing is, one last word on the AFC West. The AFC West is somehow now a less fun division to watch than the AFC East. Because at least the AFC East has like the prospect of the Dolphins doing well.
And
Right
all
now,
the
the only team
unintentional
that
comedy.
looks competent is, oh yeah, the Jets for comedy, and the Bills for disappointment, and the Patriots for classy football. But for the AFC West, it's fucking, there's just one team. I feel so bad for Ninja Glos. He's a great guy. He's a great fan who's put up with so much shit from his team.
And he has to deal with, yeah, I know, but we're gonna segue awkwardly into the NFC South now. I'm gonna cry about how we don't have Nnamdi Asomugha for a couple seconds, and then we're gonna move on with life. Because other than that, and cap room left, even though we should have cut Pierre Thomas already. The Saints have had a fantastic offseason. And you look at the two guys who were putting in just severely awkward cap situations that we don't really want, and they're both playing for the equivalent of their veteran minimum. Will Smith and Jonathan Vilma both got renegotiated down to really good deals because they're only being paid veteran minimum plus their dead money, and that's it. And other than that, we were able to bring in Keenan with that cap room. We were bringing Keenan Lewis, who's number one corner, he should be number two, and Victor Butler at $1.5 million a year, which was an insane signing.
Yeah, that signing was wonderful. I don't know how in the world anybody can be upset with that other than the 31 teams that didn't get him. Because at that price, he made how many visits in free agency? He visited with like 6 or 7 teams. The rumors were that his demands were like just outlandish. Then you get him for that? Like,
he could have been
how badly were people lowballing Victor Butler?
He could be an elite special teams player with any team at that price.
Exactly. It's just I don't understand why his market was just so unbelievably soft.
Oh,
but,
one analyst, I bet it was Peter King again, was saying, "Oh, he wasn't very good because he was always a backup." Yeah, the guys in front of him were Anthony Spencer, DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah, what do you expect? Like, how is he not going to be a backup?
Right. There's only a couple things from this offseason I really regret about the Saints, and one of those is that they didn't. I love Pierre Thomas. They really should have cut him by now. He's
Was it too late? Did he get a bonus or something?
No, he's got no guaranteed money left on his contract
So
whatsoever.
cut him.
And he's $2.5 million, and we've got 5 running backs on roster. Should have cut him already, but the Saints. If there's one thing the Saints are notorious for in terms of their general managership, other than being very good with their guaranteed money, and they're very loyal to players who are being paid, extreme amounts of money and still do their jobs competently, even if there's a huge redundancy. And that's what Pierre Thomas is he's just a massive redundancy at this point because we've got guys who can do everything that he does, and Sproles and Ingram and another guy, Ivory, who we gave a second round tender. And he's getting paid $2 million because of a second round tender. After we gave Ivory the second round tender, I figured it'd be just a matter of time. It was presumption that Pierre Thomas would be cut because it makes no sense to keep both of those guys on for a combined $4.5 million. But we did, and we can't get rid of him for Asomugha because Asomugha's gone to the 49ers, which is a huge shame. And so we have to deal with the cornerback situation, Jabari Greer and Keenan Lewis. Which, if Greer's healthy, he's a low tier number one, high tier number, ever going to be healthy for the rest of his career.
Yeah, when it comes to the Saints, we're essentially in the same situation as we were with them last year, except now that they have a head coach. The offense is still good. They're going to put up numbers. They've still got, running backs out the ass. They've got a fantastic interior line. They've got a great quarterback. They've got receivers who all fit their offensive scheme extremely well. But you look to the defense, they're transitioning to a 3-4 with awkward personnel for it outside of middle linebacker. I don't think it's going to go badly, but, there's a severe lack of talent in both the front seven and the issues on the back end that there were last year. I think the secondary is probably very much improved with Keenan Lewis, but you still don't really know what you're getting with these safeties. You'd have to hope, going away from Spags is going to help that, but who knows at this point what you're going to get on the back line.
At this point, we have to draft a rusher. It has to, Victor Butler's going to start on the right side. If we don't, it would have to be that every pass rusher's gone for us to not draft one because we desperately need, because we've got, as far as I'm concerned, in a one gap scheme, we've got the line covered because we've got Cam Jordan, who was in the 3-4 at Cal. He should be fine.
Yeah, Cam Jordan's a good fit. Broderick Bunkley as a 0 tech or a 1 tech is fine.
Hicks can be. I mean, Hicks is big, but he's got pass rush moves, and he was an adequate third down, sub for Brunkley last year.
Yeah,
and he should
Akeem
be.
Hicks can play.
He can be transitioned to
And
the
there's
role.
Kenyon Coleman, who's
Fine.
at least a good rotational guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Lawson should be fine inside linebacker. I'm more worried about Hawthorne, who's never played in anything but outside linebacker. That should be a concern.
He
but,
played middle linebacker in Seattle.
well, he did briefly, but it wasn't the same system that I mean, it was nothing close to the responsibility to take on as a 3-4 inside linebacker versus Lofton, who played a similar role in Atlanta, not in New Orleans, but in Atlanta. And that's the problem. That, and we have nothing across from Victor Butler whatsoever, because Junior Gillette none of our pass rushers have ever played in a 3-4 defensive end. Martez Wilson, who was converted to defensive end, played inside linebacker in college, which might mean he's finally gonna, after 3 years straight of transitioning positions, he might actually move back to his original college position, which would be just retarded. But we've got nothing, absolutely 3-4 pass rusher, and so if we don't take a guy in the first round, then we're in deep shit. There's no question about it.
I feel like the Saints at this point, yeah, in the first round, they have to go either 3-4 outside linebacker or 3-4 end, because as much as I like, Akeem Hicks as a useful player, if you can get somebody like Starr to play 3-4 end at
guarantee.
16, which is possible, you have to make that pick, period.
Yeah. If Sheldon Richardson's still on the board, you've got to make picks.
I agree. Yeah, I think if one of the top 3 defensive tackles is on the board and you can play them at 3-4 end, you make the pick and just deal with the consequences of not having anything at rush linebacker later. But it's got to be front 7. I mean, if this team is going to be competitive, you're going to need a bounce back season from Malcolm Jenkins. You're going to need Roman Harper to not be abysmal, and you're going to need them to be able to paper over the left tackle situation somehow, which is possible.
I mean, that's what we did in 2009, our Super Bowl run, when insane decline and constant injuries, and Jermon Bushrod was the tape, and he got paid $42 million this year.
Nice.
I mean, Charles Brown could, if he finally stays healthy, could be the tape. But we had some decent performances at right tackle when Strief went down out of both Marcel Jones and Bryce. The possibility that one of those could convert and be, because I never ever saw Bushrod as being a guy who could start at left tackle. He was always a developmental right tackle to me, and it's just because of Breeze's unique skill set where he can move up in the pocket when we got that elite interior line that allows them to focus solely. These mediocre left tackles look really good and get paid $42 million in Chicago. What I'm looking for, I think the interesting story here in New Orleans is both Malcolm Jenkins and Roman Harper are clearly attacking and not read and react safeties, and that's why they had problems at Spagnuolo. Bush looked better than any safety we had on the field last year, and Issa Abdul-Quddus didn't look that bad either. I think that might be because of the scheme, but they're both going to challenge for that starting role over guys that make a lot more money than them, and I think that's going to be the battle to watch on the defense is at safety. It's kind of locked up, and on offense, we didn't really make very many changes either, except for we added Ben Watson over David Thomas and saved a little money at that, and I think that was a huge improvement because Watson's old, he's like 32, but when he accidentally gets open because of
Did he disconnect or was it me?
He's here. It's
I'm here. Yeah.
yeah,
he
you lagged
just
out or something.
stopped in the middle of
And
your
then I stopped.
sentence.
We usually wait for that thing to kick back in before we start again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay.
I figured I wanted to keep going, yeah. And then no one picked up the train of thought, but sure.
You stopped like mid-sentence. I was expecting you to finish.
I thought you
Anyway.
died.
Anyway.
I was going to call the
dead.
police, kick down your door.
Yeah, for any team, returning 10 of your 11 offensive starters from an elite level offense is a great move, obviously. So I think the continuity, having Sean Payton back, is going to help this team possibly push for a playoff spot. To look at the rest of the division, let's first go to the Falcons, last year's division winners, who came within 11 yards of making the Super Bowl.
And what do we say? What do we say?
All they had to do was
Falcons
not
in our
fuck up.
first
All they had to
Yep.
do was not fuck up, and then they go and cut
Yep.
Tyson Clabo to start somebody who played
Yep.
7 snaps on offense last
I
year.
gotta wonder how My Life Story is going to damage control the Tyson Clabo cut.
When Sam Baker was paid so much.
It's absolutely crazy when you realize how much better Tyson Clabo was than everyone else on this line last year. Like, he struggled
Easily.
at the beginning of the year, and that's struggling by Tyson Clabo standards, which still isn't Doug Free on his best day. So,
Yeah.
you're cutting your best offensive lineman, who was only scheduled to make $4.5 million this year, in order to roll with someone who's completely unproven and untested, and I don't get it. I don't get why you make this move, why you fuck up the good thing that you had. You know, just to look at somebody like the Saints for a second, you know, they're able to compensate for bad tackle play because they have Drew Brees, who steps up in the pocket better than any quarterback in football. Matt Ryan was throwing those exact kind of three-step drop timing routes, you know, when he had less than 2 seconds to work with, stepping up in the pocket, making these quick little throws to his elite level receivers. And that was with Tyson Clabo. You take him out of the equation, how little time is Matt Ryan
Right.
going to have now? This offensive line has the potential right now to be Bears tier.
Here's my problem with the Clabo cut is that maybe Spot Rack's wrong. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different sources that have a lot of different measurements for contracts for whatever reason. But if Spot Rack's correct, they had only saved them $1.5 million in cap room. That
You serious?
That's it.
Come the fuck
They
on.
could have
Why do you
saved-
cut one of your best players to save $1.5 million?
and they gave. I mean, and they could have saved almost $5 million by cutting Jonathan Babineau, and not even had to touch Tyson Clabo. Or not signed OCM Manure and signed on the market, or done an unimaginable amount of other things instead of cutting Tyson Clabo, who was easily their best lineman last year. I know, you know, Mike Smith and Dimitrov have been generally praised in the media for being, you know, evaluation. This was stupid. This was
really
incredibly
dumb.
stupid.
I mean, you're looking at a week 1 starting offensive line. Assuming they don't make any moves through free agency or the draft, you're looking at Sam Baker, Joe Hawley, Peter Kahns, Garrett Reynolds, and
What
Lamar
about
Holmes.
Blaylock?
Holmes. What about backup offensive lineman, and this is his real name, Philip Keith Manley. Philip Keith is one word.
What about Blaylock? He's gonna start at guard. He's not terrible, is he?
I guess.
I mean, he's gonna.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot Blaylock.
Sort of
Blaylock's going to start
Joe-
over. Blaylock's going to
Hawley.
start over Hawley.
But Peter Collins, yeah, he's definitely going to start at center, and Sam Baker has to start at left tackle.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean-
so much money.
Wait, I don't even think they have any tackle depth, unless they want to play
Garrett
Garrett
Reynolds
Keith
is
Manley.
tackle.
I don't know if
Yeah,
he's those-
unless they play Reynolds at right tackle, but he's more of a guard than a tackle anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I remember what we said about the offense in the last podcast about the Falcons is that they needed that one guy who could who could make it so that the offense is a legitimate spread, so that they don't just rely on, you know, Julio and Tony and Roddy. The latter two of which are. They did not do that at all, and I don't think that guy exists in the draft. Like that guy. I mean, unless Tavon Austin falls in the first round, which I kind of doubt, I don't think that guy exists in the draft.
I mean, I could see certain, you know, bit players as a slot receiver working for this team. I think somebody like a Marquise Goodwin would work great in the slot for this team. Someone who can stretch the defense vertically, let, you know, Tony Gonzalez
yeah,
and
I
Roddy White
agree.
collect the yards underneath.
Sure.
Even if he exists as nothing but a diversion, he's Robert Meacham. I mean, that would be a huge get for them. It's going to come down to, this is another team where their entire offseason is going to hinge on their draft. And if you're a fan of one of these teams, it's
Yeah.
scary knowing that if you don't draft well, your team's not going to be able to make a run this year. If they kept Clabo, they would have had to come out of this draft with 2 significant role players starting from day 1 or playing significant snaps from day 1. Now I think they need 3. Because I'm not sure that you can compensate for that offensive line if you do nothing with the rest of your offense. you've got to do something, whether it's, grabbing, a guard or something in the second or third round, or whether it's grabbing a receiver, or whether it's, adding someone else who's very good on that defense. You have to do something to offset the loss of one of your best players. You have to.
I mean, I have a legitimate question. Who's starting across from Asante Samuel this year? Is it going to be Dominique Franks? Is it really?
Yeah.
Wait, what about Robert? Well, I guess if they're going to play Robert McLean as their nickel, because Robert McLean had a pretty decent year.
I thought McLean was a true nickel. Yeah.
I mean, I think McLean could potentially play outside, but it's really on. I guess that'll be a training camp battle.
I
because
wouldn't
McLean
fuck
looks
with
great
that
in
right
it.
now. I kind of like McLean on the inside. So
I like McLean a lot. Yeah.
But when you look at what they need at least a one linebacker at bare minimum, because they've got holes everywhere, especially.
Wait, they don't even have a middle linebacker unless you include Akeem Denton as a middle linebacker.
That's what they're planning on doing, yeah.
So yeah, otherwise they're gonna have to play in sub packages all the time.
I mean, but
just
you look at
more
their
snaps for Robert McLean.
In theory, they have 4 stars on the. I mean, unless OC has a huge rebound year. I mean, Jonathan Babineau's never been anything more than a one-gap penetrator, and that's it. And Jerry's and Peters have both been hugely disappointing. And Bierman's, he's white, so they've got nothing of real talent.
Hold up now, Bierman
Jared
is
Allen
Allis's
on the
boy.
defensive line.
No,
Is he really?
I didn't hear what you
Sort of.
said, actually.
I said he's so white. Corey Bierman, he's white as hell.
He's pretty white, yeah.
And
No arguments here.
He's not even really that good pass rush moves. His technique's not that great. He just kind of ends up. He's a pretty much a gym rat hustle player. Ends up being in the right place at the right time.
He's
I
Brian
think one of the
Robeson, yeah.
reasons we were so impressed with him is that he was a lot better than Ray Edwards.
Well, that's
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you know.
Hence the Brian
think
Robeson
the takeaway-
comparison.
The takeaway has to be that as good as the Falcons were last year, all their best players that they didn't need to get a year older, like Gonzo and Roddy, and actually got a year older, and they didn't replace a lot of their key losses, and on the offensive line now with Lebo gone, and that's going to be a huge problem because the divisions. This looks like a rebound year for the division as a whole, with the Panthers and the Bucks both threatening.
And I'd actually like to move on to the Bucks here for a second.
Yeah, I
'Cause
like the Bucks.
I think there's something really, really interesting that came out a couple days ago that not many people seem to pick up on, and that's that the Bucks were actually making a pretty hard push for Carson Palmer.
Oh, they don't trust.
That's
Josh
right.
Freeman.
And
No.
I think
Who's awesome.
that he is awesome. But anyway, I think the Bucks, and you've identified that Josh Freeman is not the answer. I think this is a team that could be in the market for a quarterback at some point during the draft. I don't think they're going to take somebody round 1, obviously, but I think if you're looking at somebody like EJ Manuel in the 3rd round, if he's there, I think it's the kind of deal that the Bucks would make at this point, because I keep coming back to, with the Bucks, it's really about 2 things right now. They've had a not good, not terrible offseason. Obviously the Golden contract was an abortion. I think everyone can agree on that.
Oh, yeah.
Losing Michael Bennett was dumb, but if you really believe in the depth you have there with Bowers, if you think Bowers is an every down player, which we haven't seen due to his health yet, but if you think he is, then it's not the worst move. You've got some young talent on this team, but really what it boils down to is, 1, how far can Josh Freeman get you, and 2, are you going to get Darrelle Revis? Because if you don't get Darrelle Revis, then you're at best an 8-8 team. But seeing as they are apparently the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd bidder for Revis right now, I feel like it's only a matter of time.
I agree.
I
I'm
think
surprised they haven't gotten him already.
Well,
Yeah,
they're not willing to give up 13 overall. They've apparently offered either their 2nd this year and a package of lesser picks, or their 1st next year. Which,
Right.
if you're the Jazz, I don't know how you don't take next year's 1st. But,
Yeah, exactly. That could end up being a quarterback.
or the ammo to trade up, get a quarterback. I mean, if you're the Jazz
Oh,
and you're sitting at
yes.
6, even if the Buccaneers pick ends up being in the 20s, even if you think they're a playoff team with Darrelle Revis, you
I do.
package 6 and 20 to go up to pick 2 or pick 1 even to take Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, that's what you need to do if you want your quarterback next year.
The only real problem I have with the Bucks offseason, I mean, other than the atrocity that was Deshaun Goldson. Is their weird choice in signing small players, and I mean, obviously not cutting Eric Wright, which is just bizarre.
They've apparently agreed
point.
to some
I think
semblance of a pay cut that hasn't been released yet, but I don't know how much, you know.
I think they're waiting on Revis is what it is, but they've been signing a lot of players to contracts they don't deserve. I think it's really weird, like Ogletree getting like $1.5 million, and Tom Crabtree.
Well, I love Tom
Being
Crabtree.
signed
That
just-
dude is the funniest fucking Twitter I've ever read. Besides
He
Twitter.
is a great Twitter, it's true, but he plays
Yeah.
football for shit.
No, I love it. All he does is catch those really long fucking touchdowns. They're like, wait, the Heath Miller defense isn't that extreme.
I'm actually confused on their tight end situation. Stalker and Clark back, but I don't know if they actually did or not.
Now,
They didn't
Clark's
bring
not
Clark
bad.
back.
They got
Start-
Stalker, Noble, Miller, Dunsmore, Crabtree, and Byam.
They really should have brought Clark because he started to come on at the end of the year. Like, he really did.
I mean, we'll see what they do. They've been rumored to be targeting a tight end in the draft. If they keep their second round pick, you know, they could end up with a Tyler Eifert or a Zach Ertz. But
Fuck that. Start Tom Crabtree. Best Crabtree in the NFL.
apparently Eric Wright appears likely to agree to a restructured contract as of a couple days ago, which is what I thought I read. So I'm assuming at this point, if you're Eric Wright, you have to be looking around at what cornerbacks are getting around the league and, you know, having no choice but to take a restructured deal. So I'd imagine he sticks around. You know, I think they need some sort of continuity at cornerback. I mean, they lost Talib, obviously, in the trade last year. They lost E.J. Biggers to the Redskins in free agency. Eric Wright is clearly their number one corner right now, and that's depressing, but
Ugh.
it's
Ew.
also very
Because-
much true.
Gross.
Because
Yeah.
Myron Lewis is a horrible bust, Myron Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
Isn't
banking
Leonard
on,
Johnson there too? God.
I like Leonard Johnson,
Yeah.
so
But
I
not
mean,
as a
I'm not-
2, like as a 4.
yeah, as a 3, he's solid. But anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, if you get Revis and your defensive backfield is Revis, Wright, Goldson, and Mark Barron, you know, that's not bad at all. I mean,
Wait.
having Darrell Revis is huge.
Not terrible.
but-
Yeah.
Guys, Danny Gore.
Oh right, Danny Gore championship.
Never mind. So it's gonna be Revis and Gore.
If they're
It's gonna be
smart.
Eric Wright playing special teams.
But at least when you look at the offense, I mean, if you've got, because I think Freeman, personally, I think Freeman's better than Andy Dalton off 2 years in a row, and I think they've got at least 3 elite talents in that offense, and that's Carl Nix. They've got Vincent Jackson. They've got Doug Martin, who is ridiculously good, and those 3 talents right there could carry this team to a playoff berth if Josh Freeman doesn't screw. If they get Revis, I think. And they could sneak in at 6, even in the AFC, which is a lot tougher than the AFC.
Yeah, and I have to agree with that. I like some of the you know, the lower ticket item, you know, free agent signings they've made. Like I think Derek Landry was a great signing for this team. He's going to absolutely play, you know,
Oh, yeah.
all sorts
Yeah,
of things for them.
Derek Landry is so underrated.
He really is. I think that's actually an improvement over Boy Miller. I think they're I think that was just a really, really solid move. It means that's one less question they have to address in this draft, and especially if they're potentially losing picks in a Revis deal, you know, it's going to be
The
a
thing
big
is, I
deal.
thought that Gary Gibson would be what we all expect Derek Landry to be, so I'm still kind of withholding judgment here. But I mean, I liked Derek Landry back when he played in Philadelphia, so
Yeah, he was a very good rotational lineman for them in
exactly.
the 4-3.
Fusion Master won in midday. He's like, I don't remember him getting any picks.
The problem with the Bucks is I have a point is the same problem that I have with the Bengals is that they're using it. I think Revis, even with the Revis signing, right now they've got $28 million in cap room. Even with Revis, they'll still have at worst $15 million. Even with the restructured deal, they've got to spend it somewhere.
They're talking about a Revis extension being $15 to $16 million a year. So, I mean, if you front load part of that,
But even then, they still have $8 million, not including their draft picks. Not including draft picks, they still have $8 million to spend. And where are they? I don't really see a place to give it to because I mean, you look at this team that they have to be comparing themselves to the Saints and to the Falcons in the division. At least one. I don't see them being better than either without getting it. You know, somebody. I guess could Dwight Freeney be that guy? I don't think it'd be a bad signing at this point. They've already been running over Colts retreads.
For.
He's not going to get it. He'll have to work down.
It's so funny to me. He's asking for something like $9 million a year.
Like
Come
$9
on.
million a year, isn't it?
Yeah. Like come on, dude. You're not Dwight
But
Freeney anymore.
There's a couple guys I could add with that $8 million, not including draft pick room after a hypothetical Revis trade. That would put them in the Falcons and the Saints range. I don't think they'd put them better, but with little, why not? Because they've got a lot of they got a lot of cheap pieces, especially dear God, their linebacking core is cheap. Which I don't know why they moved Cody Grimm from safety to linebacker, but
Wait, they
whatever.
did that?
Yeah, he's their reserve linebacker. They're starting
I thought that dude was
Casillas.
like 180 pounds.
They're starting Casillas. They're starting Mason Foster, and they're starting Levante David at linebacker, and Cody Grimm is their reserve fourth linebacker.
Cody Grimm? Really? That dude was on like that fucking NFL.com making the team sort of thing.
It's kind of weird. That the Bucks have some strange personnel issues, but
Well, apparently it works out for them because I fucking love Levante
they've
David.
got us.
David's wonderful. Mason Foster's wonderful. They've got some very interesting young pieces on that defense.
The only problem is this is one of the strong divisions in the NFL because the Panthers aren't bad either.
I like it, yeah.
Even with their cap room, even with their crazy, stupid running back
Which is fun
loaded
to
cap,
laugh at.
they've got itself means that they're in position to make a run, but they've got they've got like half decent talent at a couple, all the important positions they still have talent at, like quarterback, receiver, tackle, pass rusher, and they've got talent at those four positions, and that means they can steal wins from divisional teams.
So, just to sort of, stick this in here before we get to talking about a team in cap hell like the Panthers. I just pulled up the CBA info on the cap floor, and essentially how it works is it's over a 4-year period. You have to spend 89% of the possible maximum cap. The first 4-year period starts this year and ends in 2016. So these teams that aren't anywhere near the cap, they do have time to spend to the cap. I mean, if you're 30 million under this year, you're going to have to be right up against the cap the next 3 years, or you're going to be cutting it stupid close. I mean,
Which is a bad idea anyway. Right.
I agree, but at the same time, these teams that have 20 million in cap room do not have to spend it this year. So, just figured I'd clarify that for all three people listening.
Sense. But I mean, when I look at the Panthers, I see just the dead cap and the just that they have to pay so much to guys that clear. It's not even so much dead cap. RA still got dead cap, and that's really sad. And that everyone should cry about that. Travell Wharton and Chris Gamble shouldn't have dead cap, I believe, because he's retired. I didn't think you had dead cap when you were retired, but I might be wrong about that.
I'm pretty sure they cut him before he filed his paperwork, so it counts as a release.
Oh, that's right.
Imagine
Yeah.
fucking that up.
But their problem isn't dead money. Their problem is they're paying way too much money to guys who don't deserve any money. I mean, guys like D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, who both are decent running backs. They don't
Remember
deserve
that one good year they
nearly as much. They have one good year each. Godfrey's getting a shit.
Go back my fucking way back machine.
It's funny how when we were talking about the Keenan Lewis versus Derek Cox contracts earlier, where one was higher guaranteed money and the other was higher average annual value.
Right.
Which, by the way, when I pulled up the Saints page, was actually wrong. Keenan Lewis actually has more guaranteed money, but I digress.
Cool.
We were
Right,
we were arguing,
but it's all front loaded. It is all front loaded.
but we were arguing for advantages philosophically of whether you load up on guaranteed money or load up on the higher average annual value and have an easier out. The Panthers somehow managed to do both, where their average annual values are stupidly high and the guaranteed money is even higher. It makes absolutely no sense. I don't know how they managed to do this. And when you realize how much they're paying their linebackers, not even just their running back, like they have no... I mean, obviously, hopefully the new front office actually knows what they're doing. But this is a front office before with Marty Herney that had no concept whatsoever of positional value. Like, at all. Like, I don't even know what to say about this team.
We mocked the Buccaneers draft last year because they took Barron and David, who they were both good, but the positional value was just awful. And the Panthers make them look like geniuses.
Yeah,
because just this year, I believe they cut James Anderson, right?
They did.
I mean, they're still paying him $4.2 million. And then Beason's making $9.5 million, and Thomas Davis is making $6.8 million. D'Angelo Williams is making $8.2, and Jonathan Stewart's making $3 million, with $14 million guaranteed on Charles Godfrey's making $4 million. They have zero concept of positional value. Ryan Khalil still has $20 million left on his contract. Ryan Khalil's not a bad center by any means. He's a fucking center. You don't give a center $20 million guaranteed. I don't care if it's the most elite center
Yeah, I mean, John
in
Sullivan
the
didn't
history
even
of
get
the
that.
NFL.
I
He
think
didn't
the
go-
only
When you
center
mention
who's getting
elite
paid like
players,
that, I
please
believe,
Please
is
talk about
Mangold.
Nick Mangold.
Yeah, I was
Not
going to say, Mangold's the only one I think that's getting paid anywhere near that.
I wouldn't give Mang anywhere near 20. I would give him at most
Well, the
15
thing
million
is,
guaranteed.
what you're talking about is getting back to positional value, so I can see where you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Wouldn't give Mang. I love the best center in the NFL. Wouldn't give him more than 15 million guaranteed. He's a fucking center. Just goddamn deal with it,
Who are you
Panthers.
calling the best center in the NFL? You better step down, boy.
I'm waiting for him to say De La Puente.
I wasn't gonna say they'll put it. No, he's
Good.
good. He's not that good.
Wait, who did you call the best center in the NFL? Because that's what
I
that's
said
what thought you
Mangold.
Oh, that's what I think.
Nick Mangold.
Yeah, good job, man. Take you out to dinner sometime for that one.
It's pretty clear. I mean, it's not really close.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say it's closer now than it's ever been, but yeah, it's still
Yeah,
Mangold.
well,
That's
the
'cause-
thing,
that's 'cause
yeah,
of
just
injury,
because he
though.
kind of had an off year last year, and if that's an off year for him, then holy shit.
And
Yeah,
because
like,
of the
defensive
emergence
best.
of guys like Sullivan and Unger. But anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, as many holes as the Panthers have, I mean, as bad as their positional value is, they've got enough. Even with with so much talent loaded in these positions that are awful, they've got enough talent elsewhere that they can, in a few places, all the important places, and they can use those guys who are really good at the most important positions on the field, and fill their holes with these. I mean, they're duct taping their holes with mediocre to awful free agent signings like Ted Ginn, Mike Mitchell, Dominic Hickson, Chase Blackburn, Dewan Edwards.
They signed Ted Ginn. Yeah, I think really they could compete.
They could duct tape a
in
9 and
the-
7 year.
I really think that the Panthers could compete if they were in the AFC South.
Yeah. But I mean, even then, all they need is a couple of the guys who are considered to be, developmental could come on next year if Josh Norman makes his, triumphant debut in the sophomore year, this is going to be a lot scarier. I know, right? But I mean, he flashed a couple times last year. He legitimately did. And if he makes that big step, this would actually be a pretty dangerous team on defense because they just needed somebody there.
see, I'm actually going to have to
Fair.
disagree with the idea of the Panthers being a contender. As much as I love Cam Newton, as much as I love some of the players on this team, you've got one very good defensive end in Charles Johnson. You've got a very good core of linebackers if they're all healthy. Which who the fuck knows when John Beason's going to be on an NFL field again?
All
But then when you look at the rest of their defense, Josh Norman, who even if you get that big step from, is still your number one corner. You're starting Captain Munnerlyn still across from him, if I'm not mistaken. Did they
Yep.
re-sign
Yeah,
Captain?
they got him.
Just wanted to double check on that one before I continue with this. But
Yeah.
they've got nothing else across the defensive line. I mean, Greg Hardy's a useful second defensive end. He's not bad, but you've got nothing on the inside. You've got nothing at cornerback. You've got nothing at safety. When you go to the offensive line, if Khalil is healthy, you have two offensive linemen, maybe three if you get a step forward from Silatolu at guard, who
He
was
was
awful
awful
last year.
year.
He was Jeff Allen bad last year. Like, you have nothing at wide receiver other than Steve Smith.
Don't believe
There are
Dominic Hickson.
so many holes on this team. I mean,
LaFell's not terrible. He's not great, but LaFell's like a mediocre to bad number
No,
two.
wait,
But he's not
they have
terrible.
one wide receiver. His name is Steve Smith. He's 5'9". He's old now.
LaFell
by
is
the way,
like
they
a
have,
four
they have
on most
Drayton
teams.
Florence. So,
I mean, Dominic
no,
Hickson
it's
will
not a
start
four.
over LaFell.
I don't know about that. That's what I said.
Guarantee it. Guarantee Dominic Hickson starts over
Swerve.
LaFell if they don't add another receiver.
well, there's also Ted Ginn and David Geddes. Boy, I really do love
Monty
wide
Edwards.
receivers.
Let's not forget
I feel-
Monty Edwards.
No,
I feel
hold on.
bad.
We're not
I
done
feel
here.
legitimately
James
bad for
Shaw,
Geddes.
Kealoha Polaris.
I feel bad for
Lamont
Geddes because
Bryant.
he legitimately had a good rookie year and then he hit the field since then. But if he was somehow able to come back to his rookie year, I mean, at the end of that year he was looking really good. Like it looked like they were going to have a legitimate guy across from Smith when Geddes broke out, and then he tore his ACL, and then shit went downhill from there. And it's the matter of you have to. That's the least likely team in the NFC South to succeed. Obviously, is because you have to rely on Marty Herney's picks panning out. And how the fuck often did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, Even if this team has the best draft in football this year, I don't think they're going to be competitive. I mean, I think this is a team that's going to go 6-10, maybe 7-9 if everything breaks their way. But if you told me the Carolina Panthers were picking in the top 5 next year, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, like I said, I love Cam Newton, but I just this team, as many useful, nice backup depth pieces as they have, they're just lacking starting talent, ability players, and I don't see a way that unless they hit on 7 draft picks and all of them are starting day one, I just don't see a way that this team competes next year.
It's tough. They have the hardest road, but I don't think they have as little talent as you. I think they're a little better implying, but not by much. Not by much at all. I mean, Frank Alexander had some pretty solid pass rushing games. Not that he was good, but when he was up against bad tackles, he could make an impact, especially against the Saints because we have awful tackles. When he was against bad tackles, he has. Sometimes it's those games where you can go up against guys that have, that are weak, where you have guys that can exploit that, and that's the kind of games they're going to have to win. They want to have a chance at making a run at the playoffs, because I don't think it's impossible. I think it's very unlikely, 10% chance.
I'd say that their odds aren't 0 like someone like the Raiders. That's fair. But I mean, I feel like any team that's got the quarterback, no matter how little talent is around them, their odds are above 0. And I think it's fair to say they have the quarterback. I don't think anyone's going to doubt that Cam Newton's the real deal at this point. Unless they're, uppity white and middle class.
Oh, can we please go to the NFC West? Can we please?
I mean, do we have time?
No, we've been on
you guys
for
done?
almost 90 minutes, so
Yeah, we've been going
I have to
a while.
go to work.
All right, well, you know what? Spoilers for the next podcast. 2-year deal for Josh Portis in Seattle. Boom.
Portis is coming.
He's the man. Fuck aside.
Is he related to Clinton?
I don't. That's kind of racist, but I have no idea.
How is that racist? They have the same last
Please
name.
explain how that's racist.
Well, if they weren't the same race, you wouldn't even made that comment. Because that'd just be
I probably would have just for
weird.
the humor of it.
He is a cousin of retired Washington Redskins running back Clinton Portis.
There it
Well,
is.
geez, racism on Wikipedia.
This has been Cam, Chris, and Alex talking football, and we're not racist except for maybe me.
Stay gay.
Fucking swamp blood over here.